Instead of drinking tonight, I wound up just watching my videos, some of my videos that I didn't get to watch. I have to clean up the kitchen. It's a huge mess. Not that he would care, because it would be the first time ever that I left the kitchen a huge mess and went to bed, and in the morning he's left dishes and stuff and not done them till the morning, but I haven't. I just make it, a habit that I always leave the kitchen spotless. It's just what I do. It's not what I do and expect anyone else, any of my roommates to do, because I'm not like that, it's what I do, though. So anyway, I'm watching part 4 of So I've at least made a little bit of headway. I actually received good news today where I talk about that guy, and I remembered some things about that. Okay, I remember. He told me ahead of time if he was going to be nice enough to allow me to stay there with him platonically. Or platonically is not a word, in a platonic manner, okay? That I had to be there by a certain time. Be back. I always left in plenty of time. A lot of times the bus just didn't come on time. And I remember thinking, like I said, animal mode, survival mode, just like this isn't happening. Why is this happening to me? And I'm on the bus and I'm like, oh my God, I waited for this bus forever. I'm going to be late and he's going to make me stay out all night again. Okay. Remember, when I was late, I wasn't hours late. I wasn't partying with friends and then I was late. I wasn't that late. Didn't matter. I could be 1 minute late. He didn't care. The first time I stayed out all night in his hallway. Remember, when I stay out all night, then I have to go and be gone all 12 hours the next day and have gotten no sleep. He's one of the many that are full of shit, who are full of shit, who profess themselves to be religious and whatnot. No, and he wasn't like a Christian or something. He believed in reincarnation. He wasn't stupid. He was like a deeper kind of religion, whatever, but he was an asshole. So I took my punishment. It didn't happen that often. I tracked it. I'm sure I have it written down somewhere. But it didn't happen that often. Most of the time I got back on time, and I got to sleep on his couch instead of, staying up all night or in his hallway. Because where else could I go? What else was I supposed to do until daylight hit, and then I'd have to take off. And but when I'm leaving, when I have to make damn sure that I catch a bus on time, or whatnot, I was leaving. I had my ticket. I had to get in. I had left in plenty of time. The bus didn't come. I'm like, oh fuck, this cannot happen when I'm leaving. Please, please, please. But it did. So because I knew I was leaving, and he wanted me gone anyway, but my stuff is inside there. I had to go that day. My stuff was inside. My stuff was inside. So I caused a scene so he would let me in to get my stuff. I feared that he might never not even let me in and keep my stuff. That's how much he was hating me. Hating me for, I don't even know why. Because I wouldn't let him control me. Because he didn't like me making friends with these homeless people. Because what else am I supposed to do? I don't know what he wanted from me. I mean, it's just ridiculous. He said things like, they just want to get in your pants. Yeah, so what? I'm not letting them. What the fuck do you care? I had to do it. I had to do. My life had slipped into a nightmare yet again. I did what I had to do, I just made, I'm sorry, I made the best of a bad situation, you know. But anyway, that night I had to get in, you understand? There was no, I'll sit all night in the hallway and then, you know, take my punishment like a good little girl. I had to get in, so I caused a scene. I was yelling, pounding. And because I did that, because remember, it started off earlier, but then when he wasn't going to let me in, I periodically pounded on the door all night. Finally, that's how come it wound up being. Finally, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, 1:30, whatever it was. He finally let me in and kicked me out in the middle of the night, and wouldn't even call a taxi for me. And I remember earlier I said he didn't have, I think he did have a cell phone. He wasn't even, but he had one of those where it's minutes, he wouldn't even call a taxi for me. He professes himself to be religious, and he doesn't care that it's just like Donald saying, look, after he'd done what he'd done to me November 4th, 2008, and how he'd been psychologically, emotionally abusive throughout our relationship. And as far as I'm concerned, you can even call it sexually abusive, because it was just, I mean, you can't call it that, but our sex life was horrible too. But lots of people's sex lives are horrible because they're not sexually compatible, so I can't really call him sex. But anyway, he was psychologically, emotionally abusive towards me. And it nearly ended with him, it ended with him nearly ending my life or worse. And then later he's going to say, look, Laura, I'm one of the nicest people they ever come across. This guy would say the same thing about himself. See, I deserve it. In these men, in the eyes of these men, I deserve it. They're still good people. I deserve it. See? It's bad enough if you're wandering around in the middle of the night by yourself without carrying anything. Remember, I met this guy. We had gotten my stuff from my mom's friends. She was storing it for me. Remember, this was stuff I'd brought with me from California when I was going to visit my mom. Didn't expect to wind up homeless on the street, so it was a good amount of crap. So what did I do all night? While I'm thinking every moment this is probably going to be the end of me, well, I stayed on the main road for one thing. I had my giant suitcase. I think I had another small suitcase. I had stuff. It wasn't just one little suitcase. It was stuff that I had brought when I'm planning on, visiting my mom for a while and hanging out and doing whatever. It doesn't matter. He kicked me out at like 2 in the morning. It wasn't going to be daylight. There weren't going to be buses running for another few hours. I had stuff. I repeatedly tried to flag down taxis because I also had money to pay for a taxi. They just passed me by. There were taxis in the middle of the night. They weren't going to pick me up. They saw the stuff that I had. They probably thought I was crazy. Here I am, this tall blonde in the middle of the fucking night waving down taxis. No, they all drove by me. They didn't pick me up. Maybe they didn't want to pick me up because they saw the stuff that I had. So how do you think I did my stuff? I'll tell you what I had to do. See, it's coming back to me now, only because one of my friend/fan asked me, and it sparked my memory. Wonder why I screamed out, because you're going to come back to me, but he's kicking me out in the middle of the fucking night. Wouldn't even call a taxi for me, nothing. I had too much stuff. I couldn't carry it. I remember now, I would wheel my suitcase up, say, 10 feet, then leave that there while I'm looking at it and go get the other stuff. I couldn't carry it all. And he kicked me out. He didn't just kick me out. He's like, if you stay, I remember, he wouldn't let me stay in front of his apartment with my stuff either. He's like, he'll call the police on me. He wouldn't call me a taxi, and he threatened to call the police on me. A nightmare. When all he had to do, when I was only like 10 minutes later, or even if I was later than that, if I was later it was because of the bus, it wasn't because but whatever. That's how he was. He should have just let me in, let me crash on the couch for a few hours, and then I'd be out of his hair forever. No. It had to end as a nightmare, because that's what my life always happens, okay? I had too much stuff. Taxi wouldn't have anything to do with me. They saw me waving them down with my stuff there, and they didn't want to have anything to do with me. They didn't want to have to get my stuff in their trunk or whatnot, or lift it, or... I believe finally, when daylight came, then a taxi picked me up with my stuff. Because it would have been even a bitch to get on the bus, you know. I didn't even know. That's what I think happened. I forget. Or else I've had my stuff on the bus, I don't know. I may have had it on the bus. I may have gone to a taxi, I really don't remember. But that's what happened. Calls himself religious, kicked me out in the middle of the night. Because I was making noise. I was making noise, causing a scene, because I knew that I had to get my stuff together and be out of his apartment very, very, very early in order to catch my bus. My Greyhound bus, okay? And as I've told you, then that turned into a nightmare too. Everything turned into a nightmare for me. All turned into a nightmare. Of course, the Greyhound bus thing was, partially my fault. Without admitting guilt, I'm not going to say what I did, but if you want to put two and together, be my guest, I'm not going to admit anything. For all I know, not that I think anyone could, but because it was so long ago, but I was naive. I'm just going to say this outright, and you can think what you want or whatnot, but I'm not going to say what happened or what I did. If you want to piece things together, you can. Remember who I was, who Donald was, who I'd been even in my 20s. Even when I was going to Access and Man Ray and whatnot, living in Massachusetts when I was in my late 20s. I would sneak booze. Just like a lot of people do, sneak booze onto buses, on trains, drink it discreetly, yada, 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 whatever, okay? Greyhound buses are different. And I don't blame them one bit. But I found out they have what's known as a zero tolerance policy when it comes to alcohol on the bus. And what that means is, if you're caught drinking on a Greyhound bus because there are kids and families and whatnot, and you're potentially putting them in danger, it's a totally different situation. Zero tolerance policy means that they don't care if you die. They will throw a woman off the bus in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a pitch black road, in the middle of nowhere where there are no lights, and where she will likely wind up raped or dead or whatnot. That's all I'll say on that. No, obviously it didn't happen to me. It happened to one of those guys. One of them, not the other one. Not the one who laughed at the chicken, Melmer getting chicken off the table video. He slipped through the cracks for a while, but then it happened to him too. But one of the guys, they threw him off in the middle of nowhere. That's all I'll say. They have a zero tolerance. Wait a minute. No, maybe they waited till it was a woman driver. It was an African American woman driver. No, I don't think they don't. But remember, you go to all different stops, and you're in different states, and could be even a borderline, a different country. And I was going from Massachusetts to Los Angeles. maybe it's a rest stop or something and they can throw you off. I forget. All I know is that I later found out, but yeah, they'll throw you off like in the middle of nowhere and not care because they have a zero tolerance policy for that. You think I knew something like that? Me, who I'm thinking it's just like a regular bus, regular train, you know, can sneak and get away with it and whatnot. Again, I'm not saying what happened, what I did or didn't do or played a part in. I'm not going to admit guilt. I'm not going to say it out here. I'll just tell you that I learned a lot. I believe the kid was actually a drug. I don't know if he had drugs in the suitcase. He was hinting around that he did later when the cat was out of the bed, but I do know, because I witnessed it, that he and his friend got shit-faced. And the friend was a brand new friend. It was somebody who had gone on the bus later. And remember, I'd met this kid first. This was someone else who got on the bus then. But they joined together and they were talking about going up and down the aisle. They were shit-faced and they were talking about blowing away the bus driver and hijacking the bus. So I couldn't believe it. But yet again, nightmare. Okay? Yet again, Laura finds herself in a living nightmare. So no one should question why I've often slipped into dissociative mode. Dissociative, to me, I believe they changed it to multiple. It's not multiple personality. It's not. It's just. It's only way I can describe it is something's happening, but it's not happening. You know, you realize that it's happening, but you also have to separate yourself from it to the degree that you can survive and function. That's all. You know, even though technically you know it's happening, but I've often been in that mode. Spent a good portion of my life in that mode because I was a loser when we moved to Florida and I had no friends, you know, and you know you're a loser and you have to see all these people laughing and dating and kissing and having friends and all this crap, and you're just on the outside, and you know. And then at home I had my father ridiculing my loser status in life, you know. And I didn't want to even exist. So I just went through the motions and I studied really hard and I just, you know, escaped into books and whatnot. But I've definitely spent a good portion of my life in what they used to call dissociative disorder. When I looked it up, it's where you just, it's not that I didn't know things were happening. You kind of just separate yourself from them, and they're happening, but it's almost like you're watching them happen, and that's how you deal with the pain, you know. That's the only way I can describe it. That's how you deal with the pain or the trauma or the horror. It's like, fuck, what next, you know? That's how I kept Omar and I alive for those 7, you know, my week of hell living on the streets of LA with Omar. I kept us alive but yeah, this is happening, but you separate yourself enough from it, even though you know it's happening, because if you really, really think about it, think about the predicament you're in and what's really happening, then you'll lose your mind. And then if I lose my mind, what happens to Omar? Say, believe me, there were many times during my week of hell with Omar, living on the streets, riding buses all the time, and then when it was hot I had to put him in the shade, but guess what? A bus will go by you, so what do? I have to have him in the stupid carrier in the shade. I have to stand over here and wave down the bus and watch out for him that someone doesn't take him. You know, it was just hell. But if you don't wave down the bus, it'll go right by. It's not gonna, you know, and I couldn't have him out in the heat, and oh, it's just hell. But remember, that's how I've survived a lot in my life. It's not that I'm crazy so much, it's not that I don't realize that things are happening, okay? Yes, I realized that Omar and I were in a bad predicament, okay? But you separate yourself from it to the point where you can at least survive. So you can't really think too deeply about something. Otherwise, it'll overwhelm you. And if it overwhelms you, you won't be able to function. So that's how I did it. You can call it stepping outside of reality, you know. It can be something like the Matrix or whatnot, just stepping outside of it. Okay, yeah, this is happening, but I'm gonna be outside of it. It is happening to me, but since if I really think about what's happening, I'm gonna start screaming and never stop. I have to just be in survival mode and stay calm and accept that it's happening, but in the end, it's still the Matrix and we're still just this ball floating in space, you know what I mean? In the end, whatever's real on this planet, if you look at the larger picture, we're still just this ball floating in space. And who knows? You know, that's how I've had to deal with this life, because too much bad shit's happened to me, okay? So of course, when I find myself having to drag my stuff in the middle of the night, and taxis going by me, they didn't give a shit. I had to wait till the damn bus, you know, started running at whatever would start running at 5:30 in the morning, whenever it would run, you know. I was out there for hours. Of course, I'm gonna be like, okay, I know that it's happening, but I'm going to separate myself from it. This isn't really happening. And that's how I deal with things. That's how I would deal with it. And because if I didn't, believe me, I would slip into insanity. I'm like, oh my God. This guy, I don't even care if he didn't like me anymore. If you're even even the tiniest bit of a nice guy, you don't throw a woman out in the street with her stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't do it, period. Even if you hate her guts. Even if she's your girlfriend who's cheated on you, you don't throw her out on the street and you won't even call a taxi for me, nothing. He wouldn't even call a taxi for me, and he did have a phone. He wouldn't call a taxi for me. I didn't have a phone. He had a phone. He wouldn't fucking even call a taxi for me. Yet he professes himself to be a good guy. He's a fucking prick. Okay? That's what I mean about dissociative disorder, or just me. It's not that I'm not aware of reality. It's just like when I was being raped by those 4 guys that time, okay? This isn't happening. I separated myself from it. I distanced myself and I was watching it happen to me, but, you know, so you don't lose your fucking mind, okay? That's the only thing I can say. It's what I do. In the end, I just have to ask myself, you know, why is all this fucking shit happening to me, you know? But that's how I survived. I survived by stepping outside of it a little bit. Just enough so that I could deal with it. So on the part of me is aware that it's happening, and a part of me is in denial. And I just, the denial part is helping me just not be so overwhelmed that I'll become coma, that I can't even function. I'll become, like that's what I did. That is what I did. But you can't tell me that I don't care. I didn't do anything to this guy, nothing to warn. I mean, yeah, I was screaming. I was not screaming. I was pounding on his door because I had to leave. He wanted me gone anyway. I had to leave. He said he wouldn't have fucking cared. I was afraid he wouldn't give me my stuff. I was really afraid he wasn't even going to give me my stuff. He wouldn't care that I had to leave and that I had to catch my bus home and whatnot. And again, my stuff consisted, I had brought to my mom's a lot of my poetry and poems and all that crap. I think I had planned to put them online or something. I don't know. Remember, I was also in the middle. This was when I was smack dab in the middle of my Jack Crooked Loves Me thing. Remember, I didn't find out until October. And this was July. I didn't find out until October about Kristen and that crap. But that's what happened. But it's when he kicked me out, okay? That's when I shouted. I didn't fucking care. I'm a woman. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to call a taxi for me? You're going to kick me out with my stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning? What the fuck? I couldn't believe it. I hadn't done anything. You'd think I had robbed him or... I mean, he just was an asshole, period, He showed his true colors, just like a lot of people do. That's the amoeba thing, T.S. That's when I shouted up, you're going to come back as an amoeba. Oh no, maybe when he wouldn't let me in. I may have shouted, that might be what sparked him to throw me out, because I caused a scene. But remember, I didn't at first, for hours, because I was supposed to be, say, home by 10, and I got home a little after 10. I was like 10 minutes late or something, and I knew I had to get my stuff, and he wouldn't let me in. And this of all nights, he had to let me in, period. I didn't know how late he was going to sleep. I had to be at that bus early, or I'd miss my bus. And then what happens to me, He didn't fucking care. His thing was, and that was it. That's what happened. Me pounding and pounding on his door when I could hear the TV in there, so I knew he was awake and he was ignoring me. Okay? Fucking prick. That's when I went outside and shouted, you're gonna come back as an amoeba. Because I think he had said that to me before, that I was gonna come back as an amoeba. He didn't like me or something. I don't know. I forget every little detail. All I know is in the end he threw me. All that matters is if you threw me out, and he's not a good person, because I don't care if I'm your girlfriend and you caught me in bed with. You don't throw a woman out in the middle of the fucking night when she doesn't have a phone and she can be raped or killed, and you can't call yourself a good person if you're going to do something like that. I didn't have a phone. Like I said, I had some money. I'd gotten that money that I got the traveler's aid to get the Greyhound bus ride, which wound up being a ride from hell, home from Massachusetts to LA. And I had a little bit of money left over. But the taxis ignored me. They saw my stuff, and they saw me waving them down, and just probably thought, what the fuck is she doing out with all that stuff in the middle of the friggin' night? I'm not going to bother with her. And they didn't. They didn't care. I believe in the end I did have to wait till daylight, and I didn't get a taxi. I think I did have to take the bus. The taxis wouldn't pick me up. have a phone. So that's how the amoeba thing happened. He said it to me first, told me, because he believed in reincarnation, that I was going to come back as an amoeba. So I shouted, like, you're going to come back as an amoeba. By the way, even if I believe in reincarnation, I believe you'd only become people. I don't believe that people come back as amoebas or whatever. You know, but that's just an aside. So, yet another piece of the puzzle. Like I said, a lot of shit's happened to me that wasn't my fault. And a lot of shit's happened to me that was, I mean, technically my fault, you know, but even if you engage in self-destructive behavior and wind up causing bad things to happen to you, you know what I mean? Causing it's still the fault of whatever bad person does something to you, you know? I do feel that way. You can't say, well, it's Jane's own fault that she got raped because she did such and such but, you know, yeah, on one level it's her fault, but on a deeper level it's not, because it's still the bad person that did that to her, you know. So I engaged in a lot of self-destructive behavior, as I said, in my past life that could have easily led to my death or worse. You know, when you play with fire, and a lot of times you get burned. But what happened with that guy, my God, I don't know what was his deal. I don't know what was his deal. He wanted to control me. He didn't want me to make friends with anybody, and he didn't want me drinking at all, and I wasn't drinking anywhere near him, you know. Like, what do you want from me? I have to leave every single day as if I'm living in a shelter. I have to leave all day long, early morning till night. 7 in the morning, I have to be out of there, and I can't, and curfew for you, I had to be back by like 10 at night or something or other, you know, and that's a lot of hours to find something to do, something to occupy my time so I don't go mad. In the end, I didn't even know what was wrong with him. I cleaned his place, and I don't know, he was cuckoo. He was smart, but he was cuckoo. But, you know, he was on disability. I think it was for psych problems, so, you know, but he wasn't a good person. He was cuckoo, and he just, I don't even know what was wrong with him. I really don't. All I know is he started not liking me and treated me bad, while still allowing me to stay in his place. Maybe he just didn't like my attitude, and I didn't come across as anyway. But you have to understand, when all this shit's happening to me, even though other people don't know it, I know. You get it? I know, yeah, all this shit's happened to me, and on the surface I look like a total loser, but I did graduate and major in English and minor philosophy and graduate with a 3.5 from college, okay? I have been writing songs and poems since I was a little girl. you know, and some of them weren't half bad. So I guess he, you know, and a lot of times men are just assholes, period, and he was one of those assholes. I think he just, I don't know in the end, I don't know. You'd have to ask him, because I look back on it, I didn't do anything wrong. I was nice. I tried, I cleaned his place for him. I don't know why he started just not liking me. But isn't it telling that I'm hanging out with these people? He knew them, and he's like, he says to me about the men, they just want to get in your pants. He was pissed that I was hanging out with them and laughing and joking, and it's not like you're inviting me to go wherever you go. It's not, what am I supposed to do for 12 hours a day? You know, I'm not allowed to talk to anybody but you. He was a control freak. He was an asshole, just like Donald. So, you know, that's the only thing I can think of. Because regardless of whether they believe me, I was sweet, I was nice, I cleaned his place. I don't know what he wanted from me. In the end, he just didn't like me for whatever reason. I think he didn't like me, you know, enjoying myself with these other homeless men. He didn't like seeing it. I don't know. He wanted to control me, and then got pissed when he saw that he couldn't control me. He's not going to control me and tell me what to do when I'm fucking I'm in yet another nightmare trying to make the best of it, and it makes my days a little more enjoyable if I can talk with people and have friends and whatnot. He didn't like that. That's the bottom line. He didn't like it. So he still let me stay there, but he made my life miserable. And I didn't even know what was wrong with him. I don't know why he was upset with me. He just, oof, God, what a fucking prick. I need to go wash the dishes, clean up the kitchen, and go to bed. That's what I need to do. Wash all my dishes. Make sure the kitchen's nice and clean.